Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here and share with you the strategies I use to produce one of my most successful events and how, with the help of Mobile Cause, we changed the narrative around what was possible at a fundraising event. As an event strategist, I'm always striving to make every event that I produce bigger and better than the one before. Now, to share a bit of background, my event planning and consulting firm, Laporte& Company, actually came about as a result of spending 10 years in the world of not-for-profit and seeing how many organizations struggled pouring hours and months of work into the planning of their events only to yield the same or marginally improved revenue results year over year. I wanted to create a space where I could provide organizations with the strategies and tools to take their fundraising events from barely breaking even to breaking records. After producing successful and incredibly profitable events for several organizations, including Special Olympics and Teach for America, among others, I knew I needed to help more nonprofits thrive with the possibilities that successful fundraising events afforded, not merely survive the planning of them. And with that, I'd like to share a bit more about one of those success stories. If you don't know much about it, let me share a bit of context about Teach for America. Teach for America works to enlist, develop, and mobilize our nation's most promising future leaders to strengthen the movement for education equity and excellence. The organization has 52 regions across the United States. So fundraising galas are a typical mechanism that a lot of regional teams employ so they can raise a large amount of money in a short amount of time. For the region I used to be a part of, the celebration dinner serves as the largest fundraising event of the year. It's an event that serves to recognize and celebrate the impact and work of teachers, or as they're referred to within the organization, core members, and alumni of the program. The dinner is a staple within the community, and each year it welcomes close to 500 guests, which include corporate and foundation sponsors, school leaders, community partners, and public officials, among others. In addition to that, the dinner serves as an opportunity for the region to say thank you and pay homage to the incredible group of donors that have supported the work of the organization year over year. The funds raised at the event directly go to support the recruitment, training, and ongoing professional development of teachers and alumni throughout the region. Now, before I start talking about the event itself, I just want to set the stage for you a little bit. I had recently transitioned into the development role shortly before the event, and I only had a 3-month runway to plan this gala from start to finish. You heard that correctly, 3 months. Sounds incredibly daunting, I know. However, having planned events for years before that, I was fully confident I could pull it off, but I didn't just want to do the event the way it had been done for years before. I knew I didn't have much time, but I still wanted to go big. I wanted to reimagine the way our donors, the community, and even the regional team viewed the event. After having been in existence for over 10 years, I knew there was hidden potential for massive revenue growth. I just needed to figure out where it was and how to tap into it. Prior to diving into planning, I actually started by doing research to learn the history of the event. I wanted to better understand the opportunity gaps that existed and where we could potentially improve. I focused on the results from the previous 4 years, and it became apparent that I needed to solve for 3 major issues if I wanted to capitalize on the fundraising potential that existed in that room. Let me break these down for you a little bit. The first issue I was solving for was how to engage the younger demographic at our event. In my research, I found that we were literally leaving money on the table by not adequately tapping into the generational diversity that existed within our audience. For context, our audience ranged from millennials all the way to baby boomers, but yet the only giving modality that had ever been employed at the event was a commitment card. A giving tactic that generally appeals to baby boomers, but it drastically excludes those from Generation X and millennials who are just not typically compelled to give in that manner. From the research, I also knew that millennials wanted to give, and they had actually expressed as much. They just didn't feel comfortable giving in the only method that was available to them at the time. For us, the lowest commitment card amount they could opt into was $500, which for teachers, as I'm sure you can imagine, is not a feasible entry point. Because of this, I quickly realized we needed to pivot and quick to provide a fresh and exciting new way to engage that sector of the audience so we didn't keep losing money year over year. Now, to be clear, I'm not bashing commitment cards. I didn't want to get rid of them completely because I do recognize their importance and the role that they play at an event because they actually had work. I simply wanted to introduce a new giving modality that would energize the crowd and make the event itself feel new and fresh, while also giving people a different option from which to give. The second issue I needed to solve for was finding an engagement mechanism that would be quick to set up, given my massive time constraints, be incredibly user-friendly, so guests could easily engage with it. It needed to be expedient with payment processing, so we could determine a final revenue land and share the update with the board of directors the week after the event. But more importantly, I needed it to be able to integrate with our donor management system, which was Salesforce. Last, I was juggling the planning of this event on multiple platforms, and it was quickly proving not only cumbersome, but wholly inefficient. At the time, we were using Classy for our giving page, Eventbrite for ticketing, and Bizbo for the event website. Now, knowing what I know about events and knowing the way that I needed to manage that event, I needed a single platform that could consolidate everything and serve as a one-stop shop for all things event. Now that you know the background and all the issues that I was solving for, let's delve into how I found a solution. Given the severe time constraints I was under and not having capacity to individually research all of the different options that were in the market, because by this point you should know I was 4 weeks out until we went live, I needed a platform that was not only trustworthy, but one that had a proven track record of success for organizations. But even more important than that, I needed something that could accommodate my event needs in an expedited time frame. That's when I learned about MobileCause through a colleague. They had already seen success with the platform in their own region, so I was intrigued by what it could potentially do for our event. Within a few days of this conversation, I participated in a MobileCause demo and was immediately sold. Not only was a giving thermometer created for me in real time while I was on the call, but more importantly, the platform addressed every single issue I was solving for. Now that a potential solution had been found, and with the clock continuing to tick, the next step was convincing our board of directors to essentially do the impossible. I needed them to approve the use of a new event technology that had never been tried or tested before in the history of the event. Convincing our board was not an easy task, but the way that I convinced them and got them on board with the idea was by demonstrating the thermometer the way that it had been presented to me on that initial phone call, and by sharing my rationale and the research I had done ahead of time for how this technology had the potential to engage new donors in a way that we'd never done before. After they saw everything laid out, they too were convinced and agreed to move forward with Text to Pledge on a trial basis for that year's event, with the understanding that the conversation would be revisited pending the event results. Let's dive into how I promoted this new platform ahead of the event. Now that I had the go-ahead from the board, the hard work was far from over. Now I actually needed to prove this could work. I had a lot riding on this. Given the short planning runway I had, I wasn't able to fully take advantage of all of the marketing tools available to me that first year. So instead, what I did is I capitalized on the areas that would provide the biggest return on investment for the available time I had to promote it. This is what it looked like. We immediately created a mobile-friendly and online giving page and promoted those across our social media channels. So it generated interest and excitement ahead of the event. And even better still, this replaced Classy, which instantly provided lists because it was one less platform to manage ahead of the event. Next, we shared news about the new text-to-pledge thermometer for our donor newsletter to drum up support and excitement for why we should attend the event. This is especially helpful for those guests that had traditionally attended the event for years, but for the past few years had actually lapsed. And last, we sent out text messages before the event sharing our giving code so guests could donate early and get a glimpse of what they could expect night of. Now, let's move into the strategies I used during the event. Prior to the event date, I knew I had to be intentional about the way I rolled out this new platform from beginning to end. My staff needed to be well-versed and fully confident in their ability to execute and support donors during the event. But I also needed to make it as easy as possible for everyone in the room that night to not only understand the technology, but be able to follow along and engage with it. Now, going back to the generational research I had done, we tailored the event program to address what different generations respond to and are compelled by, specifically when it came to giving. This included retaining the use of commitment cards for long-standing donors who preferred to give through that method, adding text to donate for millennials and newer donors who were compelled by the excitement that a platform generated, but it also meant we took it a step further. We reconceptualized our video format and we created a more interactive and engaging stage component that got the crowd more involved in the lead up to the Text to Pledge launch. So it felt like a great climax in the event once the technology was actually introduced. To ease some of the fears that had been expressed ahead of the event about how this new platform was not inclusive for guests who weren't comfortable with technology, I worked really hard to make the event thermometer essentially foolproof. My mantra was, if you don't get it, you can't sell it. And so working one-on-one with our board chair to ensure he was 100% comfortable with the technology in the lead up to the event was absolutely critical. As a person that would launch and introduce this new technology for the very first time in the history of the event, I wanted to mitigate as many follow-ups and potential glitches as possible for him. I chose a giving keyword that was super simple to avoid as many input mistakes as possible while people were texting throughout the evening. We strategically placed young ambassadors that were tech savvy at every table to provide support as necessary during the text to donate component. Older donors who didn't feel comfortable texting simply handed their phones over to an ambassador or support staff, and they completed the text pledge on their behalf. We placed step-by-step text to donate instructions on the table and on the screen. No matter where a guest looked, could easily find directions and follow along. I also worked closely with our AV team to ensure we had ample Wi-Fi in the room, so the lack of signal and internet connections didn't deter anyone from giving. One of the most crucial things we did, however, was having our board chair launch the platform by demonstrating how easy it was to use by doing it himself from the stage and walking the audience through it step by step. Seeing his pledge come up on the screen within seconds and making the audience laugh when he told them, I'm not even tech savvy and even I can do this, got the crowd really excited about it and how easy it was to use. For those donors who preferred to stay anonymous with their pledge but still wanted to participate, we emphasized that remaining anonymous was easy to do and shared instructions for how to do that from the stage. We didn't want anyone missing out and not pledging simply because they didn't want to be publicly recognized. Lastly, we planted a few donors in the audience who we knew ahead of time were prepared to give at the dinner and practiced the technology with them ahead of the event, the same way we had done with our board chair. This prepared them to execute night of, so their pledges were the first ones on the donor wall as the first big gifts of the evening. This strategy got the ball rolling and immediately prompted the rest of the audience to get going and donating as well. Following the event, we used SlideDial. And SlideDial is a platform that connects your call directly to someone's voicemail, allowing you to skip the conversation and simply leave your message. It was a game changer. We used this platform to personally call and thank every single attendee within 24 hours, whether they gave the dinner or not. This simple step generated an additional 15% conversion of unfulfilled pledges from the night before. For those attendees that still had unfulfilled pledges after the event, we had scheduled a series of 3 text message reminders to be sent in the days following the event. We had scheduled these ahead of time, so it didn't create an additional post-event task our team needed to manage when we were busy wrapping up the dinner. Let's talk about results. The ability to customize the giving amount through text to pledge meant that more donors participated, and it created easier entry points for first-time donors. The option to include a short message with your pledge that would show up on the donor wall was a huge hit and created even more excitement in the room, which was really cool to see. Some feedback that we received from guests was that they appreciated the immediacy of fulfilling a pledge because it meant that you didn't need to wait for a check to clear or your credit card to be run. The biggest lift that was created for our team was the ability to have donor acknowledgement letters be automatically sent once the pledge was completed. I set up our platform pre-event to auto-generate letters that included our donation acknowledgement language, and this step alone saved us countless hours of work on the back end. Now for the numbers. The first year using MobileCause led to the highest ever night of giving for the dinner, surpassing the record that had been set at the dinner the previous year. We actually hit our goal in 3 minutes. This had never happened in the history of the event. In fact, we hit our goal so fast that I had to run to the back of the room to increase the goal amount on the thermometer so there was room for it to keep creeping up as donations kept coming in. Strategically planting donors in the audience to be the first ones to submit their pledges to the donor wall worked like a charm. It created an atmosphere of immediate social pressure that saw donations quickly go from $250 to $5,000. The second year using MobileCause, we broke yet another fundraising record and went 35% over goal. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, the whole idea to utilize MobileCause was born out of the desire to tap into an underrepresented section of our donor base. As a result of that, we saw a 250% increase in the number of millennials that gave for the first time at our event. Of those millennials that had previously attended the event and donated, we saw an average 180% increase in the size of their gift. Additionally, we also had higher overall pledge fulfillment. Prior to that, we had struggled with incomplete pledges because commitment cards would be filled out with no payment information. And we realized that this was a result of many in the audience feeling pressured to be writing something on the card when everybody else was when the ask was made. There's so many great things that came as a result of this, and it would quite frankly take hours to go through them all, but let me just share a few more. This technology and the way we were able to implement it at the event helped create a powerful narrative for what was possible, and it reinvigorated the excitement of attending the gala, particularly for those guests that had been going for years on end. From a board of directors that was initially hesitant to go with something so new, this platform is now turned into a no-brainer to bring back the event year over year. Something that was a surprise to me was that there were representatives from several local nonprofits in attendance the first year we used Text to Donate. And after seeing the success of the platform and how it completely changed the tone of our event, they reached out to me to learn more about it and see if the same could be true for their event. In fact, a couple of them even signed up with MobileCause after the fact. The lasting legacy of introducing this platform, however, was that the region's massive success with the platform started a national conversation with their organization, where more and more regions were interested in utilizing it for their local events. This led to the national development team securing a contract with MobileCause so they could provide the platform to as many regions as possible so they too could capitalize on the revenue generated and maximize the impact within their own region. All of this to say, what started out as a risky but hopeful fundraising experiment when I literally had no time quickly turned into an avenue for quick and massive success for our region and so many others in the organization. By implementing these easy-to-use online tools, we were able to produce a fundraising event that not only engaged our audience in a new way, but it made it so much easier for them to support our cause.